Holla, holla, holla. All right, I'm not Teddy Long. Welcome to the second episode of White Heat, a pro wrestling podcast. I'm Brian Cady. That wonderful laugh you just heard was Mr. JJ Alexander. And we are ready to rock and roll as we are brought to you by the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame and Godzilla Media. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter. Mine's pretty simple. It's at Brian Cady, BrianCady. And you can follow JJ at JJ_Alexander. And you can also email any questions, comments, concerns, hypothetical situations you want us to discuss, brian.cady@godzillamedia.com. And if you don't remember any of that, it's scrolling across the bottom of your screen right now. JJ, how was your week?
I've had better weeks.
All right. Well, we won't get into the details of that. Let's just jump right in. You want to talk about a week where it seemed like cheers, yes. Where it seems like there wasn't really a day off from news, whether it be inside the ring or outside the ring. But I just want to start real quick by I just have to say this real quick because I saw something that happened on Twitter 2 or 3 days ago. That really bugs me because given my radio background, I personally loathe and despise, and since we've both been in the wrestling business, we probably know a number of people who are like this, who start rumors.
You just froze on me. We're twins.
Damn reason.
There you are.
On Twitter this week.
Now you're gone.
Oh, you got me?
Now you're. Yeah,
I don't know what that was.
Weird. I heard the beginning of rumors, and you were frozen like this for like a minute.
It's a good way to be frozen, huh? It's like shadow puppets. But a lot of rumors, innuendo. I just loathe and despise people like that, especially people who are in a profession that is some kind of media, whether it be newspaper, internet blog, whatever. And the one thing I saw this week was some schmuck decided to take a tweet and completely twist it into something that is nothing at all.
Was it Meltzer?
So, no, actually, it's not. It's some bottom-feeding third world internet blogging troll who is not even close to name recognition of a Meltzer or a Sean Sapp or a Ryan Satin or a Mike Johnson. I don't even know what the dude's name was. I really don't care to share it anyways because it doesn't deserve the publicity of having his name shared or his site. But basically, Britt Baker, in character, because she tends to tweet in character a lot, she basically tweeted out that if Christian Cage gets an AEW action figure before me, I'll quit or I'll kill someone. She said something along those lines.
She said she would quit.
So this dude takes that tweet and entitles an entire blog, Christian Cage threatened by AEW woman star. Like, get the fuck out of here. I mean,
well, that was the same thing with like a day before. They did the same shit saying that Dax Harwood said that he was going to quit AEW if freaking some other team got a tag title match before FTR did.
Right, because FTR, well, Dax is claiming, and that they deserve a shot at the Bucks, and then again in character was basically bitching about the Varsity Blondes getting a shot at the tag titles this past Wednesday on Dynamite. That's what it essentially measured up to. So, granted, I'm not the biggest fan of dirt sheet writers or wrestling journalists in general. Now, I'm not the biggest Meltzer fan in the world. Never have been, never will. Mike Johnson's okay. Sean Sapp's okay. Ryan Satin, he's basically saying whatever WWE wants him to say at this point. Yeah. Although he's technically working for Fox, whatever. But I'm at a point where I just take anything I see from anyone and take it with a grain of salt until I hear it confirmed either by the company it involves or the talent it involves. Otherwise, I just kind of I'm at a point where I can't, I become, what's the word I'm looking for?
Ornery.
Yeah, well,
jaded.
That's the word I'm really looking for. Jaded. I just got to a point where I can't. I've become very pessimistic about the wrestling journalism that exists out there, and it's kind of sad, to be quite honest. What's your stance? We'll just say Meltzer for the time being, just because he seems to be like the face of wrestling journalism, more or less, over the last 30 years. So, what's your opinion of Meltzer, and then your opinion of other wrestling journalists out there?
I can't stand Meltzer. He's right, like 2%
right.
of the time. He's terrible. Like, I learned early on from good workers to not listen to a thing Meltzer says and to not ever feed him any information.
And he also discussed his show. He also discussed his action like he's paid by NJPW on their staff.
Right. Like, I learned, that's one of the early things I learned from New Jack is Meltzer's a piece of shit. Don't deal with him.
All right.
Meltzer's bad. Ringside News is just as bad. They are just clickbait upon clickbait. Like, every little thing.
That seems to be the one site that gets, yeah.
And they'll do
that's the one site that seems to get attacked the most.
It's because they'll release the same story 6 times in one day with different headlines just to get traffic to their site.
Yep, that's about right. I don't know. I'm just at a point where the only ones I find halfway credible, I mean, obviously the stuff that's fed through ESPN or Sports Illustrated, I mean, that's one thing, because it's being fed to a mainstream source, and they're not going to take anyone's bullshit unless it's straight from the source itself. But, like, really, other than Sapp or Satin or Johnson, I just don't even bother taking anyone with any level of seriousness. And even then, I'll still double check Johnson and Satin and Sapp just to be on the safe side. I just I can't take it. But anyways, so really the business of professional wrestling, there was, to me, a lot more news outside the ring than inside the ring. And the inside the ring stuff with WWE we'll get to a little bit later. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of condense it. Like last week, if you saw the debut show or listened to it, you saw us basically go into detail by segment with Raw and SmackDown NXT. We're not really going to do that this week just because there's so much stuff to cover from outside the shows. We'll just kind of condense it all. We'll basically do like an overview of what Raw looks like, what SmackDown looks like, and then maybe cover a couple of things in NXT and just kind of call it a day. But the first thing I want to cover from outside the ring is news that I think should be bigger than I believe it came off to be. And that was Will Ospreay getting hurt again and having to vacate the championship over at New Japan, and now leaving New Japan kind of trying to figure things out as to what they're going to do with that championship. So, I mean, obviously you have no shortage of potentially rightful contenders for the title. I mean, New Japan is completely stacked with talent. I mean, you have Okada, you have Sanada, you have Jay White, you have so many guys. Naito. Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, what direction do you think they could possibly go in with that championship? Do you think they go into like a tournament? Do you think they just do like maybe a couple eliminators that leads to a championship match? What do you think their approach is going to be?
Honestly, I think that because of the time of year that it is, and because they would probably start gearing up for it anyway, I think that they would probably just hold the title in abeyance for now and crown the winner, do the G1 climax and crown the winner of the climax as the new champion.
That's a very good strategy. I mean, really, the only thing that makes sense other than that, potentially, but again, you're talking about holding the title vacant for over half a year if you did it this way, is if you did something where it leads to Wrestle Kingdom. But again, that's 8 months, and you don't want to have a world title held up that long. So,
right, and
your opinion makes more sense. But I think if it were closer, Wrestle Kingdom would have probably been their preeminent choice, but given the timetable, I would agree G1 Climax is probably their best option at this point.
And usually the G1 Climax winner is the contender at Wrestle Kingdom.
Right.
So you're just kind of getting ahead of the game, and then you can do some undercard stuff to throw together a contender at Wrestle Kingdom for whoever fills in at the Climax.
Exactly. And speaking of New Japan, make sure you all stick around, because at the end of the show, we're going to do our weekly hot list, which is going to cover the topic of top 5 talents who should be in WWE but never have been. Hint, hint, you might hear a few names that we've thrown around already on this show mentioned in my list or in JJ's list. So as far as New Japan is concerned, it seems like now granted, the terms and conditions of how to handle the COVID situation were a lot different in Japan than they were in the US. But it seems like New Japan, I mean, obviously this Ospreay news is a blow, but in general, the business of New Japan has basically gotten in its stride all over again. It's really, I mean, there's not going to be any kind of thing that is back to normal really after something like a pandemic, but more or less, it's essentially business as usual at this point. Whereas with WWE, and this is another piece of news that happened outside the ring, they announced this week live events starting back up with I think it was a 25-city tour starting in July 16th, where they'll essentially be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for SmackDown and for Money in the Bank. And then that Monday night, they'll have Raw in Houston. So, I mean, it was obviously news we saw coming. It was just a matter of when and where they were going to start off. So how pumped are you to see them finally get out of the canned noise of the Thunderdome and actually get in front of some live crowds starting in July?
I think it'll be a positive to see a live crowd there. Of course, live crowds are always a double-edged sword, especially when you've had live crowds cooped up now. I think every crowd is going to feel like they want to be the Raw after Mania crowd. And that's what worries me.
About the crowds trying to do too much at this point. Yeah. I can see that. I just feel like, I think the other side of the coin is, and it's not that there's anyone that's given hints of this being a problem potentially. Talent's getting used to live crowds again. And I don't mean just like the noise in general. I mean like getting used to, the assholes will just yell anything to get attention from a wrestler. Right. That's the main stuff that's going to be interesting to me is just the talent getting back in the flow of having live crowds around them, whether they're 10%, 50%, 100% capacities, whatever they may be. It's going to be definitely intriguing. And I think we got a taste of that at WrestleMania, but it wasn't a true taste just because you're in a stadium, so everything is so spread out. The odds of you hearing something that you would react to negatively while you're performing in the ring, pretty goddamn slim, honestly. And it's just a matter of getting, acclimated again with that environment.
I wonder if they're going to keep NXT in the Capitol Wrestling Center, or if they're going to move it back to Full Sail now. Because there hasn't been any word on that.
I mean, personally, now granted, I'm no Paul Levesque, but if it were me, I just like the general feel of the presentation of the CWC. Like, I personally don't know how the layout would be for fans in CWC versus a Full Sail. If it would be less, more, the same, I don't know that personally. But as far as the general design, feel, the look of the show, I've gotten the CWC grew on me very quick, and it hasn't gone down for me at all. I think I'd prefer CWC at this point.
Yeah, because I knew people that that would go to the Full Sail shows, And the thing with Full Sail is the people that bought tickets there would buy tickets like for a year out because they were so cheap and so they could just be there all the time. And the issue with that is there were certain people that were white hot in Full Sail that fizzled out when they got to the main roster. And it's not because it was the crowd that made them there. For instance, I will give you a prime example of someone who was over like a son of a bitch from his first day out at Full Sail that we haven't seen on TV in 2 years, and that's freaking Bugenhagen. Well, Rick Boogs.
Oh.
The crowd went insane for him with the first time he came out in Full Sail, and they were like, this guy was just supposed to be enhancement talent. Shit, what are we going to do? And they tried refilming his entrance with a lesser crowd noise, and the crowd got louder, and it just screwed them.
See, maybe it's just because I was a lot more selective with what episodes I watched when NXT was strictly on the network, but I don't remember him having a whole lot of. I remember, like, obviously the one thing I remember is when he was jamming out after a match with Kayla Braxton. That I remember. I mean, anybody with a brain remembers that. But aside from that, I don't remember a whole lot involving him, except for he was easy to point out in the crowd when they were doing pandemic shows with the roster in the crowd, and then obviously what happened Friday night, and that intrigues me.
Last month,
right? And that kind of intrigues me. Not to jump ahead of ourselves in what we were going to talk about, but I mean, on one hand, it kind of felt like a one-time thing, but can we get to a point where we see? Because I've been looking at him as like Elias 2.0, where the guitar thing becomes a permanent gimmick with him, and that just is their way of kind of trying to push him along at some point? Or is this just something where it was a one-time thing because it felt right with the Nakamura Corbin stuff?
Who knows? I think they want to make him the Man Mountain Rock to Elias's Honky Tonk Man.
See, there's that. I also thought of Van Hammer from WCW.
Yeah.
Minus the actual 80s hairband look. Rick's more, how should I put this? Rick's more of a Zubaz kind of look, like a 90s Zubaz kind of guy looking. Van Hammer was an 80s hairband look. But, I mean, Man Mountain Rock. See, what was he? He had a different name in WCW.
Max Payne.
Max Payne. Thank you. Yes. Because I was just watching stuff recently, because I think I was telling you this last night or the night before. I've been on a Super Brawl kick lately on the network. I think one of the matches I saw was Max versus Dustin Rhodes. I want to say for the U.S. title, maybe.
Yeah.
And Max, he was okay in the ring. Wasn't spectacular. Wasn't going to rock your world. No pun intended. But he was okay in this spot, I thought. But that's neither here nor there. That doesn't mean a damn thing now. 30 years later. All right, so there's a lot of AEW stuff. So we're just going to try to kind of bullet a lot of it as much as we can. First thing,
I'd like to have some bullets for ACW. for AEW.
Oh boy. Bullet number one, AEW announcing a second show. They're going to move Dynamite to TBS, and then they're going to launch a second show that'll be Friday nights. If I remember correctly, I'm not sure if they're actually going to air the same time as SmackDown or if they're moving to air once SmackDown ends at 10. But either way, they're going to launch a new show.
Fourth show, not a second show.
Well, if you count, I don't count the 2 YouTube shows.
Nobody does except
put that out there, by the way. I don't count the 2 YouTube shows because that's essentially the modern version of Primetime Wrestling and Tuesday Night Titans, or Wrestling Challenge and Superstars, whatever era you remember. It's essentially that. Although Tuesday Night Titans was kind of more talk showy, but you get the point. All right.
Yeah. It's squash matches.
It's fillered so that they can get more under talent. Right. It's glorified squash matches. Squash matches, not squash. Well, wait, whatever. But it's also to have, because when you have, it's funny, and we'll get to this on a show in the future, because I have never been a fan of the one roster for two shows look for WWE. Because just too many people, too little spots. Like, the two rosters gimmick is way better for everybody in the long run, honestly, if you ask me. So to me, when you have one big roster with one show, and now you're going to expand to a second show, great, but are you going to use this second show to highlight the people that aren't getting spots in the first show, or are you just going to do the WWE business strategy of, let's just give Cody Rhodes, the Elite, the Pinnacle, the Inner Circle, let's just give them extra time on another night of the week? Like, to me, if you're smart, you basically take the talent you're using for the matches like on Dark and Elevation, and you put them on the show. And you say, hey, go show you're worth a long time commitment to the company, and that you're not just here to job out to all of our current stars and then disappear after 6 months to a year. That's how I would go about it. But again, I'm Brian, you're JJ, and they're AEW. So, what would that be the strategy you would try to employ? Is try to highlight different talents between the shows?
Yeah, it should be, but I mean, it's
too common sense.
It's too common sense. As it is with Dynamite now, they've got all the freaking comedy sketches and shit on it that it's just filler time. Everyone complains about Raw doing it, but they do it just as badly. And they're adding a 1 hour show. So what are you going to really get out of that? Like, you can get in you can get in 3 matches, maybe 4. And it's going to be, I don't know how they're going to do it, because it's, I got nothing. I got nothing. Like
in theory, and that's about as good as it's going to get, I think, between us and the people down in Jacksonville. In theory, you would think less filler trash, more in-ring. Again, that's just theory, but you would hope that's what it would be. But it's television. It's a wrestling conglomerate. Who knows? Who the hell knows? Right. Other stuff coming out of AEW quick. Like, are they trying to just pick and choose everything from different companies and claim it's theirs at this point? Like a trios title, like, let Ring of Honor have that. Let ROH have it and keep it, because their talent can go 30.
Here's the reason they're doing it. Because they're trying to stay buddy-buddy with Mexico, and there's trios titles in AAA and CMMLL. They're trying, what do you call it? Ring of Honor does trios because of the fact that Ring of Honor has always kind of been stable heavy. They're just putting in a trios title because they keep throwing 6-man matches on randomly, and they're like, fuck it, we'll throw a belt in there. They're also doing it to combat the fact that MLW is bringing back Lucha Underground, and Lucha Underground had their trios title versus having a tag title.
That's true. And that good point in the live chat that I just saw, New Japan also has the never open weight 6-mans.
Yes.
So it's just, how should I put this? I'm okay with car crash matches if they have a story that's being told in the midst of the car crash. Like I want to know, okay, I'm going to hit the curb, and then I'm going to hit the guardrail, and then I'm going to kind of flip on the right side, and then I'm eventually going to stop in the ditch. Like, I want the detailed layout, or at least want you to emote something through the course of the 20-minute car crash. And that's essentially, to me, what a lot of 6-man tags turn out to be, unless they're like actual blow-offs to an angle. Really, that's any tag match, honestly, aside from a traditional 2v2. It's just, like Blood and Guts. I mean, that was, that was what it was. It was actually a glorified Hell in a Cell or War Games match.
War Games, yeah.
Right. And then Stadium Stampede, to me, is just it's a wrestling match combined with a circus, which we'll see.
It's a cinematic match at a time where they're going back to live crowds. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, as somebody who's booked and run a promotion and still does in the New England area, how do you feel about these 6-man, 8-man, 10-man tag team matches that you'll see a lot of promotions on? Like WWE even falls to that trap sometimes too, where they'll just throw together random 6-man and 10-man tags for no goddamn reason except for, oh, well, this guy's against this guy, this team's against this team, so let's just make them 3-on-3 or 4-on-4, and it'll make everybody happy. Yay, yay, yay! Like, that doesn't do anything.
At least WWE does it because X wrestlers and
there's
X wrestlers and Y wrestlers
yes.
are having a feud, and there's only so much television time, even though they could cut down on the promos and there would be plenty of time. But that's a story for another day.
Right.
But at least they do that. AEW just fucking throws shit together willy-nilly because matches. Like, no reasoning behind it.
I'm just not. That's okay. The same thing for Ring. I mean, as much as I respect the hell out of the talent that Ring of Honor has, because they have some of the best technical wrestlers, in my opinion, that you'll find in the country. That's the same thing with their trios title too. They just throw shit together basically. Like, all right, we have a pay-per-view coming up. We want all the belts on the show. Who should face Shane Taylor and this tag team that's got the titles now? Yeah, you three. Yeah, come out. Like it's
for a while
it's Paul Heyman, ECW. I showed up a half hour before the show and have a napkin and pen in front of me. Like, you two, you go out first. Like, and that's no offense to Paul, because Paul's a genius. But the bookers at Ring of Honor know Paul Heyman. So right. It's just it just seems a lot of it seems very thrown together when it's not WWE, basically.
Right. Well, Ring of Honor was hamstrung for a little while because they would start like pushing different like stable stuff, and then someone in like the prominent stable that would have the belts would get really, really hurt. Like, right. Or something like the shit that happened with TK O'Ryan in the Kingdom, and the shit that happened with freaking Marty Scurll freaking and inappropriate shit and being gone from the company and like all that stuff. But they're slowly building back up. They've got of course they just split up Bandito and Flamita and them and shit. So I don't know what they're doing with that. But I mean, like, they've got Violence Unlimited now, and they've got like these other stables.
The Foundation with Gresham and Lethal and Tracy Williams. Right.
So they're working more back towards the way they used to be. It's looking a lot more like early 2000s ROH, where there was a lot of stables back in the day when you had Generation Next and Special K and the Second City Saints and like all of that shit. Like, it worked, and they want to get back to that.
Since we have Ring of Honor in front of mind right now for a second, is a legitimate question that I have, and I'm only bringing up this person because I'm going to call it out now. He is not on my list or JJ's list for later in the show on the hot list, which will be top 5 talents who should be in WWE but never have been. We'll get to that a little bit. But I have to mention this name because when I look at him, the more and more he just looks like Daniel Bryan 2.0, or Bryan Danielson, as he was known in ROH. Where the fuck is the call to Jonathan Gresham?
That's a good question.
Am I missing something there?
I agree with you on that. I'm not sure why they missed the boat on him. Same thing with Jay. Like, I love Jay. I've known Jay for years, and I don't know why they just passed.
And Lord knows he has a ton of personality if you just go back to some of his TNA stuff.
Dude, look at his Instagram. Look at his wife's Instagram. Jonathan Gresham's hilarious.
I mean, it's just like when you look at Jay Lethal's resume, between the crazy-ass run he had when he was paired up with Truth Martini as TV and World Champ for ROH, you add in the entertainment value he provided when he was Black Machismo, or when he had the run-in with Fortune, and he was doing the Ric Flair woo-off, and like, he obviously has the complete package, and yet he's been in the business, what, like 15 years-ish?
Let's see here. No, probably about the same amount of time as me, about 17, 18 years, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, there's certain talents that are going to be continuous head scratchers, and there's nothing we can do about it, obviously, because, we don't work at Stanford, but it's just one of those things. It's just one of those talents where you just scratch your head and you wonder, like, how has there not been a phone call or at least like a text conversation or something that, it's just very, very odd. And Gresham, I think, is the one that bothers me the most that's not on our lists, just because you look at him and he literally looks like a 2021 healthier version of Daniel Bryan, essentially.
Right.
One other thing I want to cover, and this actually goes back to you mentioning the partnership between AEW and the stuff they're basically trying to do to keep in sync with the Mexican promotions. And this is something that I know we had a disagreement on earlier in the week. It was announced this week that Andrade is going to take on Kenny Omega at Triple Mania this year, which is CMLL's. That's AAA's, basically like it's essentially their WrestleMania, more or less. And that's going to be August the 14th, and they're going to face off for the AAA Mega Campeonato title, as it's called, the Mega Champion belt. I just, like, to me, it feels like the perfect fit of, if he's going to establish Mexico as his home base again, to me, facing Kenny and beating Kenny just makes sense. You have a little difference of opinion. Explain yourself a bit here.
So here's the thing. It's all a matter of politics. Yes, he does seem like the right thing. But one, Kenny's going to pull he just came back in. Why the hell is he getting a title shot bullshit? And number two, he's going to sit there and he's going to do the same thing with AAA that he's doing with Impact. And he's going to go, you make me drop this title and I sever ties with your company. And that leaves people like Pena and all them out in the freaking dirt. And he's going to hold that freaking, the whole freaking AEW TV deal as a carrot over them to say, I'm holding on to this as long as I want.
So is this kind of the same thing where, because initially the thought was, with AEW being formed a couple years ago, the initial thought was, oh, Kenny and the Bucks and them, they're coming from New Japan, so obviously they're part of New Japan. But then they took a left-hand turn and aligned themselves with Shima's company. And it was like, huh? Like, what? Like, huh? And then, like, so essentially they cut themselves off from New Japan in that way. And then they go, and obviously, Penta and Ray, I mean, you can't go wrong with them. And now it's just like, I don't understand why you would burn bridges that are unnecessary to burn. Like, that just makes zero sense at all when it comes to business, especially in a situation where you've clearly had a great relationship with them for a while now. Like, what is the point of putting that at risk and obviously we don't know what's going to happen because they still have another 3 months till the match happens. But it's just like, what's the point of holding up a company over a channel out of it being on Kenny at this point? Like, yes, it's been on American TV, but he's always wearing the AEW title. Usually that the championship that AAA has is hanging around the shoulder or waist of Michael Nakazawa, for God's fucking sake. It's like aside from it being exposed on American TV every so often, what have they really gotten out of Kenny Omega being their champion?
They're really not getting that much, but it's the fact that AEW has an international TV deal. So that's the carrot that they're going to hold. And also, along what that I just completely thought of was going back to is also with MLW bringing back Lucha Underground as Azteca Underground, they're going to be tapping into a lot of AAA and CMLL guys. And the thing is, whether it's said or not, Court Bauer still has a decent relationship with people in Stamford. So that means that basically it's going to be a war of attrition of Kenny saying, we're going to get more eyes on your people than this company who may or may not be working with Vince McMahon. It's all politics.
Oh, politics. That's something I know nothing about. I know nothing about politics at all in the business.
You're our general manager.
You probably know the person in story I'm referring to, by the way.
There's probably several.
No, the story is specific to the first show where I was. Man, do we want to get into that right now? Do we? Like, I'm gonna leave it up to you. I'm gonna leave it up to you about whether or not we go down that road and have this story told right now.
Go for it.
I mean, the company's dead, so I might as well.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively. So, all right. Yeah, I know. That was, yeah. So, initially when I got started in the business, and I actually kind of talked about briefly doing pro wrestling stuff on my other podcast, the Space Between Your Ears, every Thursday, by the way, here on from Godzilla Media. This guy started out as just a ring announcer and sound guy. Imagine that. I'm trying to play entrance music while introducing the wrestlers for a match. That's wonderful. So I'm chasing down guys for their stats, for how they want to be introduced, and I'm chasing them down for entrance music if they didn't give it to me ahead of time. That's always a ball. Especially the guys that wait till bell time. Fox. So he does.
I know.
I love him, but
I know.
Anyways, so in the midst of being with that company, which ultimately folded within 7 to 8 months, got in contact with Chris Envy, who was also doing shows in Pennsylvania and Massachusetts, and he got me involved with a company called New England Frontier Wrestling, NEFW, which is where I met JJ. And at the same time, a bitter enemy of Chris, Len Oddity. What's up, Lenny? I'm assuming, and you can correct me on this because this is going back to now how we first met. Did he put in a good word for me or something that I didn't know about? Because I walk in and everybody's pretty chill with me, and I'm just kind of like, what the hell is going on here? Did he put in a good word for me initially?
I don't know if he did, but I know that once you showed up, Len told me, Len gave me the word that you were great people. And so I was like, cool, that's cool with me. But that was after you'd already shown up. So I'm not sure if he did ahead of time or not.
Yeah, because initially what happened was I came in for, I want to say you had a show in May in Mass and June in Connecticut. Could be wrong, but I think that's about the right timetable. Yeah. And what the owner, Eric Newton, basically did was he asked me to just sit in the crowd, take notes, and then within a day or two after those shows, we just chatted over Facebook Messenger and just went over my notes. And my thoughts were pretty much in line with his thoughts about the show because he would obviously watch the show as well. And he's like, all right, come on in. You know, we want to do a general manager character anyways. Come on in. You'll be part of the next show in August. And so in August, I come in. And leading up to the show, Eric asked me a special favor. And obviously, I'm a company first guy, no matter what I'm doing in life, radio, wrestling, whatever. So he's like, hey, I need a favor. Shelly Martinez was going to be at the show. Who was, if you know her, she was Ariel in the ECW, the WWE version of ECW with Kevin
Thorne.
Thank you, Kevin Thorne. So she was coming in to do appearance and sell merch, and she was also going to be part of the show. And I guess she was asking for her fee at the door when she walked in, instead of just waiting till the end of the night like 98% of talent do. So I was like, all right, that's not a problem. So I had the money together, brought it with me to the show. And I got there early, so I was like one of the first people in the door. So I'm just chilling, waiting for her to come in. And so she comes in. She's doing the rounds like, you know, you're supposed to. Shake hands, kiss babies, do whatever you got to do to meet the talent. And I see that she's like at the end of a conversation, nobody's around her. So I take that moment to introduce myself and say, hey, just so you know, I'm, this is, what you asked for. Here it is, whatever. She was like, oh, thank you very much. Whatever. Fast forward past the show, including it's my first show, and where am I dressing for the show? I'm in the locker room with this guy and his crew named Defiant Inc., who, that's a crew and a half, because let me think about who was there that specific day. It's you, Big Guy, it's Bobby Ocean, Doug was there? I think Doug was there.
Possibly.
And then I think we had, oh, God. The guy who danced all the time and threw, like, candy to the crowd. Moved down south. Dreads. He was in the cage match against you guys.
Oh, Mac.
Yes, the Mac. I think he dressed in the locker room with us and maybe one other guy. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because, from what I recall, the locker room was pretty much split into Defiant and who they deemed was cool, and then everyone else. I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong. That's essentially how it was split up. So when I was in that locker room, I was
for it to be like that.
Right. It just worked out like that. Like, they found a locker room that was just big enough for them and maybe a couple other people, and then everybody else were in the 2 or 3 other general locker rooms. It just happened by complete happenstance. Anyways, and I don't think I mentioned Len was in the locker room too, obviously.
Yeah. So
I was like, ooh, this is like, what, am I being recruited for the NWO or something? This is kind of cool. Anyways, so the show happens. I still don't think I told you this story. The show happens. I'm on my way home. I remember I'm on the Mass Pike on the way home from Chicopee, which is an hour and a half ride and very lonely when you're in your car all by yourself. Even more lonely when you're driving home from the Connecticut shows. They're about 2.5 hours.
Yep.
And I get a call. And it's Eric. And Eric's like, did you give Shelly her money? I'm like, yeah, I gave it to her within 5 minutes of walking in the door today. Like, what's going on? So he's like, well, JT says that Shelly says you never gave her money. And I'm like, I can show you the ATM receipt if you want. I got the money and I gave it to her. Y'all can even turn around right now so you can go through my gear bag. I don't have it. I gave it to her. So he didn't make much of the conversation and just left it at that. Then, so that was strike 1 against me, apparently. Strikes 2 and 3 came all at once at some point because fast forward to that Christmas show, Seasons Beatings or whatever they called it, and there was a blow off with your crew and NEFW. There was like a War Games kind of cage match.
Yeah, that was a War Games match. Yep.
won. NEFW won. Defiant Inc. is out for good. Whatever. So after that show, Eric messaged me a few days after that and said JT was talking to him and said that me and Andy were looking to buy out Eric from the company. I really never told you this, did I?
No.
And I'm like, one, I don't have any money like that. I'm a radio guy who basically lives check to check. And two, I know Chris don't have the money because he's got almost as many kids as Antonio Cromartie. So if you don't get the football reference, go Wikipedia the name Antonio Cromartie. 11 kids and 10 baby mamas or something like that. So I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, it's my word against his. You're going to go one way or the other. And clearly he went the way of JT, and that was it. I worked 2 shows, 2 out of 4, by the way, because you mentioned how they had September and October shows, and I wasn't even asked to show up. Yeah, so I basically worked 2 shows, and that was that. And not too long after that, your crazy ass brought me along for DPW, and that's pretty much that for me in New England. Aside from one other company, which that's a whole story and a half in itself, RWE, which lasted 4 months, I think.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, God. Dude, JT was Eric's golden boy, and I'll never fucking understand why. Like, okay, the kid had talent at the time, but the kid was also, this is before he, found Jesus and all that stuff. So he was on some heavy freaking stuff. But dude, like, the major problem with NEFW/RPW was Eric gave this standing rule that I never understood. It was, if you found a venue to run in, you got to book that show. Made no sense. And also, if you held a title, you got to book who your opponents were. Those are 2 rules that a promoter should never do.
Because I remember, I think Jeremy Leary remember Jeremy Leary booking his matches a little bit because he had the heavyweight title. I do vaguely remember that rule. Who was booking the Connecticut shows then? Who was that? Your venue?
So I found the venue. I was supposed to fucking book it. Mees went behind my fucking back, and him and fucking Camaro and Randy Guerrero booked that piece of shit.
Okay.
I'm not bitter.
No, I'm not. Hey, you trust me. I have some bitterness still in my heart towards JT Dunn, so it's okay. I'm whatever. And obviously, if I ever see Shelly Martinez again, I don't know what I'm going to do, honestly. I don't know if I'm going to be a polite gentleman and just say nothing and bite my tongue, or if, have a few sharp words with her.
Hey, honestly, she got her karma. So, she walked in on JT cheating on her. So
I was going to say, weren't those 2 dating at one point?
They were together for a while. Like, she thought that was going to be her new in on the indies, and he thought she was going to take him to superstardom. And then he cheated on her with somebody, and she caught them in bed.
Wow. Holy shit. All right.
I will not say who it is, because he fucked over that person badly too, and it took them a long time to get better about things. Okay, and they're in a much better place now. And they're an amazing worker. And I will not mention her name, but they're in a much better place.
Okay. I respect the hell out of that. I'm trying to remember. So, I was gonna say something, I totally blank. Oh, I do remember a couple other things. One, it was through one of those Connecticut shows where I met Just Incredible the first time, and definitely not the last time, which is part of the RWE story I have. Holy shit. That was That was a goddamn mess. There was another thing. Oh, considering you know more than I did. Whose call was bringing in that Mancini dude for the boxing shit show that was going on? Because I remember that was part of the stuff I was involved with in character, and I just wanted to put my head through the goddamn wall because good dude, but hot, like as a
Not
person,
a
he's
dude.
an okay dude to talk to. He's okay to
Not
talk
a good
to.
Dude.
To talk to, he's okay. I don't know business way how he is, but to talk to, he's an okay dude. But he does know how to take cues. Number one, and number two, because he doesn't know how to take cues, him doing anything at a wrestling show was just a bad combination. Just a bad combination.
So him coming in was a combination of Eric and Envy.
Okay.
And here's the thing, because Envy met him through some reality TV bullshit like casting agency. And remember how I just said, if you find a venue, you get to book the show? He's the one that we did that fucking Knights of Columbus in Springfield, that one-off up the street from where the Big E happens.
Yeah, one of the shows I wasn't brought in for. Yes, I know.
Yeah, it was the show after I left Defiant Inc., and I was doing commentary on that show. And then, motherfucker, there were 2 matches on that show that we booked that fucking Drew Cordero came in and overdubbed my commentary and put them online as Beyond Wrestling matches.
Damn, what the hell was going on? Oh my goodness. New England's a lot more cutthroat than I thought it was. Oh my goodness. All right. That's nuts. Oh, I remember the thing. NEFW, this is one of the few things I'm thankful for, aside from meeting you and your crew. That was the first time I was introduced to Johnny Gargano. Because I remember the first show I came to was Johnny versus JT. And this is the one time I'll talk, because I can't speak ill of JT as an in-ring performer. I can't. And the match those two did, plus the match JT did with Mike Bennett, which was the August show that I was at. Those 2 matches were pretty damn good. And obviously Mike, his resume spoke for itself at the time already, just with the stuff he was doing in Ring of Honor. But like Johnny was another freaking planet. Even back then, and that was what, 2013, 2014? This is pre-NXT. This was, I think he was in the middle of an Evolve run at the time. In fact, didn't he bring a Dragon Gate title with him to the show that day? I think he did.
I think he
brought a Dragon Gate championship, Dragon Gate USA to be specific, by the way. Like, I think it was the Open the Gate championship, maybe. I could be wrong.
Yeah, because he came in with the Open the Gate title and JT had the US title. And
it was like title for title. Right.
Yeah.
See, I remember some stuff well. Some stuff. I pick and choose the stuff I want to remember, both the good and the bad. I pick and choose it. Yeah. Anyways, this is White Heat, a wrestling podcast. I'm Brian Katie. That's JJ Alexander. It's amazing how when you work in the indies, you can just totally go this way and that way and this way and that way. And it just all kind of comes together at some point. And we're just chilling here for a little bit and talking wrestling stuff. Obviously, we got an indies kick there a little bit, but that's going to happen time to time because we both have our share of time in it. And we're continuing to have our share of time in it. I will state that. And so it happens. Let's see where we are here. All right, so
left off. I remember where we left off. We were talking about AEW on their second show. We didn't mention that Dynamite's moving to TBS.
Right. Which
is, that's a step down. I'm sorry. You can say all you want about how TBS reaches more households and blah, blah, blah. TBS is a show that is the station that runs reruns of freaking syndicated sitcoms. That's all they fucking do.
Man, the way I would twist it is if you change your start time to 6:05.
Here's another point that I want to add to that. I want to add something really freaking that goes along with that because everyone's all TBS is bigger, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to take you to the dying days of WCW. What got canceled first? WCW Saturday night or Nitro?
Oh, well, Nitro was the very last show, so it must have been Saturday night.
They canceled Saturday night 3 months before they canceled Nitro.
Because I'm trying to remember, because they had, I want to say the first show they canned. Oh, what the hell is the name of the show? Was it like WCW Worldwide or some shit?
Worldwide, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember Bobby Heenan walking off the show. Oh, Heenan's walk-off was so hilarious. Because I think it was Worldwide first. Was Thunder around to the bitter end too? Because that I don't remember either. I want to say that got shit canned too.
Thunder ran almost till the end.
Yeah. I'm about to say it got shit canned close to the end. Okay. So basically went Worldwide, Saturday night, Thunder, and then Nitro obviously was the last show. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm indifferent about it. The 6:05 thing is a joke, by the way. You're not going to air something at 6 o'clock on a weeknight. That I'm being a jackass. The only way that would ever work if you shift the time itself, will shift it to a Saturday night. Like, if you really want to go for the nostalgic feel, but I'm not going there. Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I swear we're almost done with the AEW stuff. I'm gonna get to the WWE stuff, but I just had a laundry list of stuff I tried to blow through, and then we got on the Indies rant. Please tell me I'm not the only raggedy, crusty wrestling fan who is not a fan of Cody Rhodes calling himself the American Dream for one night next week. Please tell me I'm not the only one who's like that. He's only doing it for one night. He's doing it because he's facing a guy that happens to be from England and happened to be the Olympics, happened to be a boxer, and happened to be a medalist in boxing. It's the only fucking reason.
No, that's not the only reason.
Oh, boy. I can't wait for this.
The reason he's doing it is because he's fighting for the trademark for it again. So he needs to show that it gets used on television. I'm broke, Brian.
And what's this trademark lawyer bullshit I see everybody tweeting pictures of for AEW? Like this guy really going to trademark the name Dash Wilder and or whatever the fuck his name is these days, or Cash Wheeler, whatever. Is he really trademarking his wrestler names right now? Is that we've gotten to at this point where they're so afraid of WWE infringing on their territory that they got to trademark everybody's goddamn name? Like,
well, I mean,
fucking really,
they should have been trademarking them from the beginning. Like, seriously, if you're going to use another name because you can't use your WWE given name, then you must be trademarking it right away. I mean, that was the one thing where FTR was smart and trademarked FTR while they were still with Vince. But I said from the beginning, the second they got released, they should have gone to fucking Japan. They would have gotten treated better there. They would have been happier there.
I'm also gonna say one last thing. I swear, because shit just keeps popping in my head while you talk. I'm sorry. I think I've reached a point of aggression that I know you're at right now about two specific guys in the wrestling business that happen to be in AEW. Do you want to guess who they are? Maybe not quite your level of aggression, but it's certainly getting there.
Go for it.
I'll give you a hint. They've been bitching a lot about their Dior Jordans getting bent every so often.
What, Private Party?
No, but you're on the right track. They are a tag team. The current reigning, defending AEW.
Watch that.
I mean,
fucking vanity searching pieces of shit trying to blackball me from the fucking industry. Suck a dick.
Look, I was I was toasty enough about the stupid shit that I want to say it was Nick. I want to say Nick is the one that grows out the dark chops. I think it's Nick. When he decided to mimic the HBK Ric Flair ending from WrestleMania by saying "I'm sorry, I love you," and then super kicking Christopher Daniels, that got me pretty crusty and rusty. Then these motherfuckers decided to come out this week and they come out this week and decide to pull the his old man's dead, so let's bust on about his old man being dead gimmick by bringing up Pillman Sr. in their promo before their match against Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison, the Varsity Blondes. Like, is there any originality in the brains and bodies of these assholes at this point? Like, first off,
never.
They've basically been dressing like a ripped-off version of the Rockers for 15 years as it is. Then they just decide they can say and do whatever the hell they want, whether or not they have the legal authority to do that. And now I'm just at a point where, fuck them. Like, that's just the general point I've gotten to with them. Like, and I honestly think this all started back when they were in New Japan. And they were going back and forth between New Japan and Ring of Honor with Cody and Omega and Hangman. Like, they were just like the two guys from that crew originally. Now it's the hatred's grown more, but those were the first two guys where I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm not a fan. And now I'm just at a point where I'm like, fuck them. Just flat out. Fuck them.
Let me paint a picture for you. I said this when it happened 5-6 years ago. And now I'm going to prove it. Remember that time that viral video popped up of the Young Bucks super kicking an 8-year-old and his dad?
Yes. Yes.
What was the name of that company?
Wasn't it a company in the Midwest?
I don't even remember. You know why? Nobody fucking remembers. And that was the point I made back then. Because they were all, this is going to put that company on the map. I don't even think the company's still in fucking business now.
Well, here's the other funny thing. You know who made wrestling with kids popular at the time before that happened? Their own fucking business partner, Kenny fucking Omega. Like,
yep.
Again, unoriginal. And you know who really put it on the map even before that? And it wasn't even wrestling. It was just stunts with kids. Ted fucking DiBiase.
Yep.
Like, hello.
I love Ted DiBiase. I'm so glad he's been making cameos at NXT.
Oh, him and Cameron Grimes are just...
That's money.
Like, as much as I love everything going on with NXT, they are like top of the list for me right now. Just, it's endless hilarity.
Uh-huh.
All right. I'm finding my cool now. Relax. Breathing.
I'm going to take you up one more notch before we come back down.
All right.
Because there's one thing we forgot.
Let me make sure I remind myself to do a meditation from the Calm app later on. Okay, go ahead.
There's one thing we forgot. See, unfortunately, Ray Phoenix, we found out this week his neck is fucked up.
Yeah.
He's going to be out. And I'm just going to point this out.
That's 2 neck injuries in 2 weeks, but whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to point this out. Remember when everyone was like, well, AEW is going to give other workers health insurance. And that never happened?
Yeah. I don't even know.
Worked.
Pretty much. All right. So there is one other outside the ring thing we have to get to, but at least it's WWE related. Before we get to anything on camera related, NXT cuts from WWE this week. The notable names that I can recall, just because I didn't see the formal list, I just saw names pop up here and there. The notable names I saw, though, were Drake Wirtz, a.k.a. Drake Younger, the referee. I think it was 1 or 2 other referees that lost their jobs. I did see that behind my document that I have open. Thank you very much. Desmond Duke, the MMA fighter who was basically aligned with Shayna Baszler and Marina Shafir. Although I think, honestly, she's doing well enough with her Twitch streaming for video games that I don't think it's really a thought in her mind at this point anyways. Alexander Wolf, which was actually part of...
was released.
That was part of storyline over the last few weeks with Imperium. And, obviously Imperium's now gone from 4 to 3 with Eichner, Bartel, and Walter. And then lastly, and the most individualized cut of all, and obviously I'm not getting into great detail because it's a very sensitive topic that this name involves. Velveteen Dream, released from WWE NXT. Obviously a lot of rumors and stuff going on that I'm not going to dive into. I'll just say this. If it's been going on since before all the Me Too stuff that happened last year, involving a bunch of British guys and guys like Joey Ryan, like, if it's been going on since before that, Vanessa Bourne too. I forgot about her being cut as well, but Vanessa Bourne was an afterthought in the women's division. If this Velveteen Dream stuff was going on longer before that, then that's honestly shame on the company for not recognizing it and dealing with it beforehand. But aside from that, I'm just gonna keep my hands away from that story.
So the company did an internal investigation, and when a company like WWE that's publicly traded does an investigation, I trust that they're thorough because they cannot risk to have their stockholders mad.
Of course.
They did an investigation and didn't find anything wrong. It was actually released that the reason that he was released is because he hasn't shown up in the past few months. Like, he was really scarce at the Performance Center, and he basically used that he thought he was Trips' golden boy as to, like, well, I'm not being used, so I'm not going to show up at the PC. And that's what ultimately led to the cut, which is really sad because that, like, I know there's a whole bunch of freaking conspiracy theorist assholes that are all, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? Yada, yada, yada. But in this case, he was never proven guilty. There was a thorough investigation. You can get mad at me if you want, but if they had found guilt, they would have cut him a few months ago. They kept him. He had his last match with Cole in December, and then he wasn't on TV, and it seemed like it was a stop, start the last couple times he was on, because he had that big cinematic match. They wrote him off for a bit. He came back. He only came back for like 2 matches, and then was gone again. And the thing is, that kid is so young, and that kid is so fucking talented. Like, I think if he stays with it and just stays in contact with Trips, let shit blow over. Because everyone that talks about Fire Dream was trending every time he showed up on TV. No. You look at the Twitter stats. It was like 1,000 people that used hashtag Fire Dream. That's out of 800,000 people that watch NXT.
Right.
That's less than 1%. Like, it wasn't that. It wasn't that there was going to be a social media storm every time he was on. He kind of hamstrung himself, which sucks because, like I said, that I have fucking 2 pairs of Velveteen Dream third eye fucking sunglasses. Like, no shame. Like,
for some reason, given your eyewear this week, that doesn't shock me. That's okay.
I hope things mellow out with him, and one day he can come back.
Right. And it was also just a matter of when the heat gets too strong, somebody's got to go.
Yeah.
And you just got to cut bait while you can. I wish one of my ex-employers understood the phrase "let shit blow over" and then readdress the situation later. Maybe they would have understood they shouldn't have fired me in the first place. And that's not even that's not even wrestling related. That's radio related.
I hear that.
If my boy Tom is listening to this, he'll know exactly who I'm talking about, and we'll just keep it at that. All right, so to cover TV at large for WWE, just to kind of summarize, we'll just kind of summarize the three brands in general, and I'll just hit points between what happened at WrestleMania Backlash last weekend, and then of course what happened on the respective TV shows. On the Raw side, championship-wise, Rhea won the triple threat at Backlash. Can't say there's a lot of shock there because it was only a month after she won it. Priest and Miz. Priest and Miz will tear into in a minute. Lashley held on to the title over Braun and Drew. We kind of saw that. Styles and Omos didn't defend their titles, but AJ did appear on Raw and beat Elias by DQ, which I'll actually admit that match did a good job of not just being a random one-off. They actually set up something good to work with, I think, with Elias and Riker. That was sufficient enough to me with what they had Riker and Elias do. That worked for me.
But it's something.
It's something. It's not just a random. What else do you have right now aside from New Day?
The thing
Viking
is,
Raiders.
They can do stuff, but the thing is, Vince is so adamant against babyface versus babyface stuff, but he has no problem throwing out heel versus heel shit that no one wants to see.
Wasn't a problem 30 years ago when he booked Hogan and Warrior. Sorry, I had to.
That was once.
I had to.
I agree with you, but that was once in the history of how many WrestleMania main events?
The Galaxies.
Get the rocket fuel.
The Ultimate Warrior. And
down the cockpit door.
Hogan. It's title for title. It's WrestleMania. Sorry, I had to. I had to. Let's see what else from Raw. Garza we addressed last week. We don't need to really readdress it this week, but he beat Drew Gulak again and put a rose down in his mouth instead of his ass. Sheamus Ricochet. Oh, I wrote a note. And you'll remember this obviously, but I wrote a note because when I saw the Ricochet Sheamus stuff, I immediately thought of an angle. You want to talk about recycling history and what's old is new again? We're going to go back in time to 1995, 26 years ago. And the reason this was so vivid in my head is because the first wrestler who got me into pro wrestling, I was, 95. I was 7, 8 years old. This happened. I'm not trying to age you, sorry. But it was Bret the Hitman Hart. And in 95, he had about a 3-month story with the man we now know as PCO, Pierre Carloulet. At the time, he was Jean-Pierre Lafitte, a pirate. Arr! And this motherfucker stole Bret Hart's shades when he put him on a kid, and then stole Bret Hart's leather jacket. And that was the basis of the whole goddamn rivalry for a match at In Your House in May of 95. Over a goddamn leather jacket. So when I saw this Sheamus Ricochet shit, I'm like, I remember the good old days. Like, I don't know. I had to bring that up just quickly because.
But dude, they did that last year in fucking NXT when they had fucking. Oh,
Cameron Grimes, wasn't it?
Yeah, Cameron Grimes' hat got stolen by fucking Kushida. That was the whole basis of the feud.
I forgot about that. Hunter, you do it first with a hat, and I'll do it with a jacket.
And a hat.
I'm gonna one up you, pal. What is wrong with me today? Holy shit! It must be the haircut. I'm losing brain cells from the hair. So we had Shawn Asuka. Okay, so two main things we got to talk about from Raw still. Number one, Kofi. Kofi beating Orton, then Kofi beats Lashley with the help of the distraction from Drew McIntyre. So essentially the question becomes, are we really going for Kofi Mania 2.0, or is this just filler shit to get through Hell in a Cell? Like, honestly, I'd lean towards option B because I think you're going to have a Bobby Drew payoff when they get in front of a live crowd for SummerSlam. But they could always swerve the hell out of us and go for Kofi Mania 2 and have the payoff in front of their first live pay-per-view crowd in Fort Worth for Money in the Bank. But again, I don't see the title coming off Lashley until at least SummerSlam, but that's just me. Your thoughts?
This is another giant fuck you by Vince. I will tell you. Number one, Bobby Lashley has now been officially champion during the biggest 3-month period of the WWE calendar year. The month before Mania, the month of Mania, the month after Mania. That is when they try to pull in their biggest amount of TV viewers leading into and leading out of the biggest pay-per-view of the year. The ratings have not done shit with Lashley as champion. Now, they're pulling Kofi Mania 2 because that was Vince trolling everyone back in 2019, going, I could literally take any fucking person and push him for 2 weeks, and you people will buy him as a contender and as a champion. Because that's what you did with Kofi. Nothing against Kofi. But that was all an experiment in Vince trolling the fucking internet that worked.
And it backfired on him because he got the belt and he ran with it until Brock killed him in 15 seconds at the first Fox SmackDown.
Oh, it didn't backfire. That was Vince's plan the whole fucking time.
Well, you know what I mean, though.
Yeah. But so now it's Vince going, well, everybody said Lashley should be champion, and nothing has fucking happened. You know something? Let's pull this Kofi Mania shit out again and watch. And if the numbers don't go up, then not a fucking person can tell me I don't know what I'm doing. That's exactly what he's doing. He's trolling.
Maybe Lashley can slap some inflation into Kofi's chest and it'll look normal, damn it.
He's trolling all of us again.
But is he actually trolling, or is he just getting his nuts off at this point?
Oh no, this is angry old man trolling.
Oh my god! I don't know if my brain can handle this stuff anymore. Why did I start this podcast?
Get off my lawn, trolling.
So he's basically Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino,
except with way less brains.
If you haven't seen that movie, you're an asshole. Go watch it.
Because at least he was smart. But
True.
It's just like, what did I fucking say? What did I fucking say about Ray and Dominic? What did I fucking say? I'll put the fucking belts on them, and I guarantee the week before they start live touring, those motherfuckers going to drop them belts. Because the crowds will annihilate Dominic.
Well, they got 2 months to figure it out.
Figure out nothing. They're literally going to wait until the SmackDown before they start touring again, and Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler are going to drop another Bob's Furniture couch on the kid, and they're going to get the belts back.
So carpets. So mattresses.
Bob O'Pedic. Bam, right on the kid. Oh, look, it's soft.
We're so forward, too.
Jump in the pit. Jump in the pit, Dominic.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Wow. All right. So, the other Raw thing we got to discuss quick before we move on. Thank you. You're putting it in a different way than I was going to. And honestly, I'm not angling this about the zombies. Like that's been overplayed over the last week. We don't need to talk about that. I'm not even going to bother. I liked him in Ring of Honor as Punishment Martinez because he filled the role they needed. But now, granted, nothing happened to Morrison, at least not yet. But could we get to a point where we deem Damian Priest unsafe for business?
I could have told you that 6 years ago.
For as much as people might not like to admit it, much like people hated admitting Cena was good for business, at least for the bottom line, The Miz has been good for WWE business for over a decade.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think about his in-ring work or his movies or his...
He is a company man.
TV show about his vasectomy. He is the face of the company, essentially. He really is.
Yeah.
When you really break it down, it doesn't matter if he has a belt or not, he has the chops to be the face of the company day in and day out, no matter what the situation. And now, you done tried a spinning heel kick off the top rope and landed on the face of the company on his knee in an awkward position and done send him off with a torn ACL for the next few months. Well,
9 months.
Torn ACL could be like a fuck, man. I don't have any words at this point. There's the setup and take a swing. I don't know anymore.
I don't know. I don't care for Damian Priest. I have not cared for him since some bad business dealing I had with him back in the day. And well, it's funny because now I have a female friend that wants to fuck up that boy's life. And I'm like, well, now your boy's not going to be on TV. She's like, good, let him get released. I can see him in person and fuck up his life. I'm like, that's not the right way to look at it. You are not going to wife Damian Priest. I am not looking at this motherfucker.
I guess that's a story for off air, so we'll get into that, I guess, later.
Oh, I'll tell that story one day.
Okay. So NXT, Tony gets her payback. Tony Storm beats Zoe Stark. They do a Finn and apparently we have a guy who's not a Tony Storm fan. Should we address this now or?
I'm not against Tony Storm. What I am against is Zoe Stark being generic as fuck, and her whole thing is I make other people look good and never win. And she has no look to her. She looks like generic chick came out the gym.
So it's Barry Horowitz of the NXT Women's Division?
Basically.
Okay. I can live with that. I can't argue with you. Okay. All right. So after Tony, by the way, speaking of unsafe, I think Tony might want to go back to the drawing board with that new finisher she showed off on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
That was I know Zoe's fine and everything, but that just all you need is the wrong person trying to take that move for you and turning too far or turning too little. And Tony, I don't want to see that happen to Tony because I think she has a decent future ahead of her, and I just don't. No. No, we don't want a broken neck situation on our hands.
Yeah.
So they had the video package for Cross and Balor for this coming week.
I think they're hot-shotting that.
Hot-shotting what? The video package?
The rematch. It's next week. That should be the main event of the next takeover. Build it up again. Because if it's going to be on TV, I'm telling you exactly what's going to happen. It's going to end in a no contest because Pete Dunne and Johnny Gargano and one other person are going to fucking interfere.
Have they even announced the date for the next takeover?
Yeah, it's in June. It's in your house.
I knew. Oh, right. Yeah, what are they? So, yes, we are talking about another case of just giving away a pay-per-view match for no fucking reason on free TV. Good job. which we kind of discussed last week and will be discussed in a quick second. Grimes versus Jake Atlas. Atlas gets the dub thanks to Ted DiBiase. Damn Ted DiBiase! Or at least that's kind of what Cameron Grimes sounded like. So this is something that I want to bring up quick to you too. This whole thing that NXT has right now with acclaimed sports journalist Arash Markazi coming in and doing interviews with different talents. They did one with Adam Cole, and now they've done one with Pete Dunne this past week. How do you feel about WWE bringing in like he's not a guy that's on the payroll for WWE. He works in sports journalism on his own, doing his own thing for Sports Illustrated. Is this an interesting way to go about it? Is it kind of dumb? Like to me, this is them basically trying to legitimize the product more, which I am never gonna have a fault with.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. It's giving it more of a sport feel, which is what NXT has always strived for, and I love it. I think that's a great approach to it. Agreed.
Wolf and Dane, we kind of mentioned a little while ago with Alexander Wolf being released as of, I think he said his contract is done in mid-June.
He requested the release.
Right. So Killian Dane won. Eichner and Bartel laid out Wolf, which obviously means Wolf is out of Imperium. Then we had what I thought was I know the reputations of Ciampa and Thatcher, but I'll say this: Zema Ion, DJZ, Joaquin Wild, whatever you want to call him, and Mendoza impressed the shit out of me against Tommaso and Tim.
Tommaso made him look good.
Well, here's the thing: I obviously MSK matches their style, so that's going to be a good match too. One would assume,
right?
But I mean, and it wasn't just like I don't know what it is, but Tim, I wasn't even aware of Tim's work until literally months before he signed on.
Oh wow!
Because I just started picking up the stuff he was doing in PWG at the time, and let me tell you, every time he gets in the ring, no matter how many teeth he's lost, he just when he's on the offensive, it's believable. When he's on the defensive and taking shit from someone, he's a selling dream. And then Ciampa, I mean, we all know his pedigree.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, I think that was, I'd say that was probably match of the week in all WWE television was that tag match, honestly.
Second.
I'm guessing number one was probably on SmackDown.
No.
Really? What was number one? Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's the one WWE show we haven't mentioned yet in the history of this 2-week-long podcast, NXT UK. You want to bring up A-Kid versus Tyler Bate for the Heritage Cup. I know where you're going now. All right.
That was some good shit. I don't understand the fucking rules of the Heritage Cup, but goddamn, that was some good shit.
I don't think 99% of the people that watch that know what the rules are for the Heritage Cup, but I will give you that, yes. Does it surprise me? No, because Tyler Bate and Trent Seven are terrific over there on that brand. But I mean, A-Kid, I've seen a little bit of his work just from his time over there in NXT UK, and yeah, I mean, okay, I'll give you that. That was number one, but this was a very close number two to me.
Okay.
Fish then had an interview, challenged Pete Dunne, whatever. Saray beat Aaliyah, that's whatever.
How does Aaliyah still have a fucking job?
No offense, how does Robert Stone still have a job?
No offense there whatsoever. That motherfucker, don't get me started.
I can imagine. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Hit Row has a debut squash tag match with Top Dollar and Ashanti the Adonis against Nice and Daivari. Go ahead.
Dude, Top Dollar fucking impressed me. for that kid's first televised match, that kid did well.
Let me tell you something that doesn't hurt. Have you watched the Buried Treasures show they're doing on A&E?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't hurt that on those shows, he's had rides and fights with Booker T,
right,
Taker, Kane. That doesn't hurt either, all right? Mick Foley. I mean, that doesn't really hurt either. Like, he's been able to dip into the knowledge pool of some greats of the greats in the business, so that doesn't like. Yes,
that's a huge bonus.
Top Dollar definitely stand out. Yes, and I'll be honest, Hit Row in general did their promo. They got it to me. They have the female that, I mean, depending on your taste in women, you might attention, but on the mic I think on the mic she does a good job. We'll see what she does in the ring. We'll hold that, for when she gets in the ring. Adonis and Dala, obviously they look good. They, power and speed, very, very, very much what you think of when you think of traditional tag teams. One power to one speed guy, so that makes sense.
Right.
And then we all know what Swerve can do in the ring. So, and it's a squad built the right way, where you have a lead guy, a tag team, and a woman, and boom, it all makes sense in the end.
If they do it right, and this is a far comparison.
Big if.
But I'm just saying, if they do it right, Ashanti and Top Dollar could very well work, as well as Devitt and Bad Luck Fale back in the day.
It's a good comparison, considering Dollar and Fale. Well, Fale not so much as big as he was then, but bigger, bald guys. Yeah, that's a good comparison. I like that. By the way, how much weight has not to get off track? How much weight has Fale lost in the last year or two?
Good amount.
Gotta be like I'd say at least 100. Gotta be.
You know why? The doctor said your cholesterol isn't good, and Bad Luck Fale went, fuck it.
I would hope so. Oh, Jesus. And then Reed and Gargano, I want to say we saw it coming. I'm not entirely sure. They've been building up Bronson Reed for months now, so it was I think it was kind of assumed on both our parts this was going to happen. It is what it is. So now really the question, this is the weird part. The questions coming out of that match have nothing to do with the champion, it has all to do with the guy that lost the belt. One, where else is there to go for Johnny at this point in NXT? Two, is there anything he wants to do in NXT at this point? Three, does he even beyond NXT? I mean, obviously his main run was very short because of Ciampa getting hurt and having to drop the belt at the time.
So
does he want a main run again, or do you think he's at a point where, let me just finish out whatever I feel like doing down here in Tampa and then just go out into the sunset and root for the Browns with Candice LeRae on my arm? Like, is that where we're at right now?
I think he would like a main roster run if he gets to bring Candice with him, which would not be wrong because Candice is very talented. I don't know where that leaves Austin Theory and Indy Shovelface, but I mean, I think he's gonna just they're gonna put him in the main event picture now for at least one last bit, for how long or whatever. I think it's just treading water until they give him a debut on SmackDown, because he'll go on SmackDown. He's not going to go on Raw because he's a smaller guy. I wish all the best of luck to Johnny. I could give a fuck less about not Jeff Cobb. Oh,
it's funny. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. It'll make sense. The tease will make sense. Okay. It'll make sense. All right. Moving on to SmackDown. Segment 1, Parade of Champions, whatever the fuck that was. That was basically a glorified way of announcing they were going back to live events in July, whatever.
Yeah.
Then because of the end of that segment led to a 6-woman tag. Nia, Shayna, and Bayley get over on Bianca, Natalya, Tamina, whatever. That's an endless circle there. Corbin and Shinsuke, we were able to allude to this much earlier in the show. But then you reminded me that they recycled the same finish from Monday's Kofi matches on SmackDown Friday night. So they used the same finish 3 times in 4 days, or 5 days.
Just replace the trombone with a guitar. Like, fucking really, bro?
Yeah.
That was when I turned off SmackDown. I'm like, fuck this. Joe Bob Briggs is on Shudder. Boom.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It goes back to a lack of creativity, basically. Or almost like everything was written ahead of time and they just forgot about the crossover of those finishes. Like, oops.
This is the problem with having one creative team for both shows right now. They're like, well, fuck it. But no one's going to notice.
No one watches both shows. Come on.
Yeah, no one watches both. It's a brand split. There's people that are loyal to SmackDown who never watch Raw. Shut the fuck up.
I give up. So then we had the promo with Reigns, Heyman, and Jey Uso with the whole Cesaro and Seth thing at the end. Obviously, I think at this point it's safe to say they're building the Seth Cesaro at Hell in a Cell, barring any legit injury Cesaro might have that hasn't been revealed yet. We'd assume that's the Hell in a Cell match from SmackDown at this point. Raw, I'd say it's still pretty open-ended, but we can address that next week. Once we see another week of TV to get into it. Dominic and Robert Roode, we're not even going to touch that. We're going to skip over that. Then Apollo Crews retained the Intercontinental title in a 4-way against Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Big E. And Aleister Black finally making an in-ring return, lays out Big E to give Apollo the win. And as Apollo said on Talking Smack, I blacked out. The next thing I know, I'm looking at the lights and my music is playing. That's what he said on Talking Smack. I don't know. Whatever. So
listen,
anyways,
this gives a really good semi-main event feud for Big E while he's getting groomed for going after Roman. And it's really good to put Aleister Black right in at the top of the card there.
Si, senor. And then the Intercontinental title, we can figure out as we go along, I guess. All right. That being said, we're finally in the final segment of the show. It's time for the hot list, where we basically come up with a topic every week, and we give our top 5 for that topic. This week, it's the top 5 talents who should be in WWE, but have never even sniffed it. Now, I'm going to give two clauses to that. Number 1, and I'm making this one up because I happen to see he wasn't in your list, and then I ended up not putting him on my list because of what I'm about to say. No Will Ospreay on this list because in my mind, regardless of what you think of him outside the ring, inside the ring, he's way too injury prone for me. I don't think WWE would touch the 10-foot pole at this point. That's my opinion.
If they would have already booked him when they fucking signed Ricochet.
Or they would have booked him when Paul Heyman walked up on stage and said, hey, here's an open contract to Evolve, and he just ended up never going to Evolve. Like, that would have been the other good way. So that's number 1. Number 2, the hell was my number 2, actually? Being a part of the Cruiserweight or Mae Young Classics did not preempt people from being on this list. And that was something we agreed upon ahead of time. I don't even think it really impacted your... I'll double check it real quick before you... it didn't impact your list. It'll show up on mine twice, but it didn't impact your list at all. And so we're going to get into it starting with our number 5 selections.
And there was one other caveat.
Oh, what was the other caveat? I think I forgot this.
The other caveat was Kota Ibushi was disqualified because he has a lifetime contract with New Japan.
Correct, which obviously that puts a wrench in things.
Yep.
So, that being said, Let's go on to our number 5 selections. JJ, why don't you go first? And I gotta say ahead of time, I fully agree with every name on his list. I'm not sure he's going to agree with the names on mine. That said, go ahead with your number 5.
My number 5, because number 1, because I wanted some diversity to the list, and number 2, just because I'm amazed with the amount of amazing female talent that WWE has, and also the amount of terrible female talent that the WWE still has, that this person has not been signed. My number 5 is Jordynne Grace, because goddamn, give this chick a job. Did you freeze? I think you froze.
Jordan, it's amazing to see her. So she has a very good ear to go to for tips if she needs them. So Jordynne Grace, yeah, I completely agree with that. I went my number 5. I actually was thinking the same way as you, except the way I worded in my head was, I want a woman on the list, so God damn it, pick one. And there's only one that came to my mind, and there's a slight backstory to this. I think it was about 5 years ago. She was just starting her career, and she got booked for a promotion in the northern part of where I am in New York, north of Lake George, in a town called Wayhall. She was booked for a couple of shows of that promotion called World of Hurt Wrestling. And obviously the name stood out to me. I introduced myself to her because I was the ring announcer up there. And we had a couple of really great conversations over those shows. And the work she showed in the ring impressed the shit out of me. And then I saw her just take off. And just really take over the women's wrestling world. And now has gone sight unseen due to, shall we say, shady circumstances surrounding her the last 12 months. My number 5 is Tessa Blanchard. I'm sorry. I know the stuff that's been talked about behind the scenes with her and outside the ring. Talent-wise, though, I couldn't ignore her work because, and this even goes before any of her stuff with Callahan and the Impact World title, but even before that, the stuff she was doing on the indies and her ability to sell, like that's one of the big things I look for in talent, is her ability to sell. And she sells like $1 million to me. And I think she would be a great fit if given the opportunity. Obviously, circumstances are kind of given what came out over the last year. But yeah, shaking your head because I think we both know it's never happening. But I put her on the list and said, fuck it. That said,
fresh out, baby.
I get it. Number 4. Go ahead, JJ. What's your number 4?
My number 4? Come on. It's obvious. Vince has a hard-on for Samoans. Why the fuck ain't Jacob Fatu gotten signed yet? Like, and here's what's funny was I have a friend who used to live out here who moved out to Sacramento area, got married, all that. Her and her husband are big wrestling fans. And they used to tell me about this dude out there named Jacob Fatu, who used to wrestle shows at the Cow Palace, and how like they didn't understand why he was so over, and they thought it was because he had too many family members in the crowd. But slowly they came around to him, and then MLW picked him up. He's been champ there for 2 years. Like I said earlier in the program, Court Bauer has a good relationship still with the Stanford office. I think Jacob Fatu really needs to get looked at.
Yeah, that definitely does boggle the mind. I mean, just take a look at the Samoan lineage that's come through WWE the last 40 years. Wild Samoans, Dwayne Johnson, the Usos, Rikishi, Yokozuna, so on and so forth. Roman Reigns. I mean,
Umaga, Tamina.
Umaga. Yeah, I mean, it does make you scratch your head. I mean, it could be as simple as they're just waiting for a spot where he finally drops it, and then Court says go for it, and it happens. Who knows? I think that may be the case at this point because there's no other real understandable reason for it, honestly, at this point. Number 4, it's funny you mentioned this name within the last half hour, I think. Jeff Cobb. Like, to me, he is like, it's funny because NXT, they signed I think it was Rick Steiner's son. They signed this guy this other guy that's being billed as basically Brock Lesnar 2.0. But Jeff Cobb is still sitting out there working Japan. Oh boy.
The football kid. He looks like Ludwig Borga and Brock fucked. Ludwig Brock.
Yes. Jesus, Mary. Oh God. That's a sight that I hope remains unseen in my head. But I mean, Cobb to me, like, and this actually goes to another thing. Like, I don't get why AEW only touched him for a couple of shows and then just said, "Screw it, go work in Japan." Like, I don't know if that was a Cobb decision. I don't know if that was a contract issue. I don't know if that was AEW just being a bunch of idiots. But to me, Cobb is money, man.
So, I love Jeff Cobb. I have a personal reason for not wanting to see Jeff Cobb in WWE.
You don't want WWE to ruin him?
No. They know what to do with him. My favorite incantation of Jeff Cobb is as Matanza Cueto. And with MLW starting up Azteca Underground again, I really want to see Matanza Cueto in fucking Azteca Underground. That's the only reason Jeff Cobb didn't make my list.
Fine. You goddamn picky motherfucker. Fine. Just go to number 3. I'm sick of your shit. Thank God it's almost over.
So number 3, and honestly, I would have ranked him higher, but I think I ranked him in the middle because he's kind of a safe bet for something that all these people always say. But my number 3 is someone who is basically, he's been dubbed the Ric Flair of Japan. It's a man who they should pick up before he is too old to come over. And that is the Rainmaker himself, Kazuchika Okada.
This is the only thing I'm going to say, because there's no doubting his talent. That's obvious. Do you think, and I could be way off on this, is it possible New Japan sees what they on again, off again have been doing with Shinsuke? They saw Kenta come and go and are just at a point where they're trying to convince their guys to stay and not listen to those offers.
I think New Japan is always trying to keep Okada there because he is a huge fucking draw for them. And because the man can work with anybody. He has proven that. So, of course, he is a huge asset to New Japan. I think as far as looking at people who have come over here, Nakamura's had ebbs and flows, but yep. Nakamura likes being here. Kenta refused to learn fucking English. That was why they kept him off TV, besides being injury prone. Like, Kenta dug his own grave. But I think Okada would have fun in America. And I think New Japan kind of knows that too.
And Okada's English isn't actually half bad from what I've seen so far. Like, he's done some decent English promos after matches in Australia and England, so I can understand that, yeah.
Dude, I will tell you, Nakamura's accent on TV is not how he speaks English. He speaks English as well as Tajiri does.
Okay. All right. My number 3, I'm sticking with big guys on this one. I mentioned Cobb. This is one, I don't know your opinion on him, so I'm just going to throw the name out there. This is another guy who's lost weight in the last couple of years and has grown exponentially with his attitude, his mic skills, and I think still has room to improve. I'm going to say Shane Taylor. I think Shane Taylor could be a really good badass heel character if dressed appropriately by WWE. So I got Shane Taylor number 3.
He's solid. I can see that. Didn't make my top 5, but I can definitely see that. That's I have no argument with that.
Okay. Let's get to your number 2. He was like my 5A, 5B, so or whatever. So go ahead with this one.
Okay, so my number 2, and it is partially personal preference, but first and foremost, it's because I have seen this man work against so many people, and he has always been amazing. It has nothing to do with the fact that I have managed him on a few occasions. But my number 2 is the dirty daddy himself, Chris Dickinson. This man needs to be signed, damn it.
And he keeps his body pristine at all times. Like, when's the last time you saw Chris Dickinson walk in front of a camera looking like shit?
Seriously.
I can't think of a time. I mean, it doesn't matter where he's working. He's always putting himself out there, first class the whole way. And I agree with you. Chris is definitely up there.
Funny story for you. You remember the show? You were doing commentary. Just Incredible's retirement match in Connecticut against Matt Tremont?
Yes.
Tremont was actually a replacement.
Dickinson was the original booking?
It was supposed to be Credible versus Dickinson. And at the last
end. Did we ever publicize that?
No, we didn't get to, because before we released the main event, Dickinson said, "Oh shit, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be on the West Coast that weekend." And he was so apologetic and so great to us. But luckily we got Tremont right away. But it was originally I still have the graphics on my computer. It was originally supposed to be Credible versus Chris Dickinson.
I don't think I've seen Chris live in person, so that would have been
man after my own heart.
You know, can we? I know we sidebarred about the indies a lot, but I got a sidebar real quick because you mentioned that show. I get the background of both guys. So I need your opinion on this. And I'm not being an asshole about it. I'm just asking the question because of how it turned out. That'd be my brother playing Call of Duty. Did that Tremont Credible match get into being more of a clusterfuck than you anticipated?
Yes and no.
And I don't mean that in a sloppy way. I mean that in a violent way. Like, I mean, we know Matt. He has the background from what he does, and Credible, obviously, ECW speaks for itself. But I never was able to gauge whether or not that the way that match came off was, I guess cleared would be the best way to put it, but cleared by your expectations.
So, I had no qualms about the match when it was finished. We basically let them do what they wanted. They called that, like, I had no notes. I was like, listen, it's the two of you. You do what you want because I trust both of you. One of you trained me in the ring, and the other one I know is a complete and utter professional. You guys do what you want. Whatever you want. The building is yours. Just stay away from the bingo machine. That was the only caveat we had.
Oh, and trust me, I was going to guard that with my life because I was on the stage in front of it.
Yep. But the biggest trouble about that match, and I will tell you with all honesty, because it's been quite a few years, and it's been behind us and everything, the most drama about that match was who was going to go over. And I'm not talking about I'm not doing the job for him because XYZ. I'm talking both guys said, I'm not going over. Well, Credible refused to go over because it was his last match and he wanted to do business on the way out. Tremont refused to go over because it was just incredible and it was one of his fucking idols. And on top of it, Tremont came out with the Combat Zone Heavyweight Championship at the time. And we're like, dude, you can't do the job because DJ Hyde will fucking go off on us. And he was like, fuck DJ, I don't care. This is just incredible. I'm laying down for it. That was the biggest drama of the day.
Well, thank God that was the biggest drama of the day and not something else. Because having done our fair share of indie shows, you obviously a lot more than me, that pales in comparison to what could have gone wrong.
Right?
Like I remember, this is actually funny. I remember one of the very first indie shows I went to was Hall of Fame weekend when the Hall of Fame was still in upstate New York near me.
Mm-hmm.
I went to that show. The second match of the night, half the goddamn ring broke. And they had to fill time while the boards were being replaced by having guys cutting totally unscripted random ass promos for basically 20 minutes to a half hour while they fixed the ring. I vividly remember that because actually Val Venus was booked on that show. That's why I remember it so vividly, because he actually had a respectable match that night. And I was like, he could still kind of go. Good for him. But that was like, God, 10 years ago. But yeah, so trust me, shit can go a lot worse than that being the biggest issue of the day. All right, so my number 2 actually is an act. Okay, so you're probably like, It's an act involving 2 guys, one of which has already had a WWE run, but in my mind, that guy is kind of take it or leave it. I just think the package could accentuate what the other guy does. And that to me is Zack Sabre Jr. and Taka Michinoku. I feel ZSJ technically is one of the best in the world that can do it. I just feel like the act with Taka doing the intros just accentuates. All right, now it's time for me to piss JJ off right before the show ends. I just think that the Taka involvement only accentuates the presentation of ZSJ. So I feel like ZSJ would be a good commodity to bring in, if not for the main roster, at least bring him into the NXT UK brand and have him work with, Bait and Seven and the Coffees and all of them.
Zack Sabre Jr. bores me to fucking tears.
With his style or what?
Me. His style, his talking, his fucking attitude outside the ring. I saw a match once that everyone hyped up like a motherfucker here in New England years ago. It was Zack Sabre Jr. versus Brian Fury. And I will tell you that I love Brian Fury to death. And that was one of the worst Brian Fury matches I've ever seen. I just can't stand it. Sorry.
Was it him? Now, this is not to demean Brian. It's just one of the first memories I have of him. Was it him who broke his ankle against Chris Masters?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah, that was also a very vivid memory from that August show, or the same show as Johnny and JT was, because I think that was
the main event.
I think that was the main event. Yeah, and they pretty much had to cut it short, I believe, or as short as they could.
Yep.
So
we had to
because
carry
of
Brian out.
Brian's injury. Yeah. That's a shame.
Yeah.
And I hate that's one of my most vivid memories, by the way, of Brian Fury, because it's Brian fucking Fury. For lack of a better phrase. But yeah. All right. I can understand that. All right. You have your issue. Number one for you. I had as a tag team honorable mention. But I understand your argument for just one of the 2 coming in, so go ahead with your number 1.
So my argument, where it's not a tag team, it's just a single person, is the other part of the tag team did have a run in WWE.
Right.
Under another name, under another gimmick, what have you. And even if we're to come over as a tag team, I'm never going to complain. But even as a singles, especially because of the heat that he was able to create on his own without needing a script, and the heat that he continues to create, the man can work, the man can talk, the man can get heat like a son of a bitch, and a man you can plug in right over here. my number one pick, firing squad, ain't nobody realer than Gorillas, Tama Tonga.
Yeah, and if you want an example of the great work and heat he was able to do, and I'll mention the name, you're probably gonna yell at me, but just go watch some of his stuff from G1 a few years ago when Omega was still around. Like that G1, I think it was 2018 maybe. The G1 where the split was obviously coming up for Bullet Club.
Yep.
Tremendous work in that G1 by Tama. Tremendous work. Plus, and Bad Luck Fale, same with him. Tremendous work by both of them in that G1. So I got you with Tama there. My number one, it's funny because it's also a member of the same group. Interesting. And it's not Bad Luck Fale. It's obviously not Tama or Tongaloa. I'll let you guess this one because I pretty much laid it all out there.
Jay White?
I had Jay White as my number one. Because I've been watching this dude back when he was unable to grow facial hair in Ring of Honor. And the growth he has done from there to now, especially since the switch over to his Switchblade gimmick, was just fucking wonderful to watch. And he, to me, is one of the hottest acts New Japan should be afraid of losing at some point. I think he'd be a tremendous fit.
I thought he was going to be a surprise entrant in the Rumble this year because they had taken all mention of him off the New Japan site, and then it was 2 days before the Rumble they put him back up, and I was like, man.
Yeah, but all right. So just to recap the list. JJ had Jordan Grace, Jacob Fatu, Okada, Chris Dickinson, Tama Tonga. Mine, with the chagrin on a few of these by JJ, mine was Tessa Blanchard, Jeff Cobb, Shane Taylor, ZSJ, and Jay White. So I think that wraps it up. There's nothing coming to mind that really is big to preview. I mean, obviously, we'll probably have thoughts about the Finn Cross match from NXT this coming week.
Something I mentioned to you.
Kofi Mania 2.0 update, probably.
Something I mentioned to you that I didn't realize when I was looking at the recently added stuff on Peacock is that new episodes of Progress and ICW are on. It's kind of hard to watch because they're still doing empty studio stuff, but there's a chance to watch more British wrestling, and that's, people always want to talk about let's not take sides and let's just watch wrestling because we want to watch wrestling. Well, there you go.
Gotta please everybody at some point, even if you live in your mama's basement with a keyboard and a nightlight. Anyways,
I live in my own basement. This is my workshop.
Well, at least you have a name for it. Some just call it the basement.
No, I literally have workshop tables next to this laptop.
Oh Christ! It's okay. I get it. It's a workshop. I get it. All right. So that'll wrap up the show. I'm burned right now. Yeah. I'm as I would say, I'm blown up. You've blown me up, JJ. Congratulations. Good job. But it's been 2 hours, so I'd expect that. Don't forget, today's show was sponsored by International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, which is not-for-profit entity returning Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame legitimacy back to the New York area. They're looking into a facility right now in Greene County, which is basically halfway between the Capital District and New York City, maybe a little further towards the city, honestly. But they're looking to bring back the physical Hall of Fame since it moved from here to Texas. Looking to bring something back to New York State, and they're going to have a special show for their inaugural induction weekend. The actual induction will be on Saturday, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me. I'll pull it up on my phone right now. But they're also going to have a show on a Friday, August the 27th. In Watervliet, New York, at the Watervliet Sports Dome. I'll be there doing commentary with Rich Palladino. Which,
nice.
Listen, let me tell you this. When I got told Rich was doing the show with me, I I'll be blunt. I almost shit my pants because
good man.
There's not many guys that do ring announcing and commentary that I have looked up to on the indie scene. If you don't name Rich Palladino in the short list, you should get smacked in the face. I mean, especially around the Northeast. I mean, if you don't mention Rich, get the hell out of here.
Yep.
And I already told Rich, look, I'm going to love working with you. I don't know what reputation precedes me, but I'm looking forward to working with you. And then we also have another special special guest joining us on commentary. I'll reveal to you behind the scenes because I need to tell you what behind the scenes before we announce it on the air. But again, that show is going to be Friday, August 27th, scheduled to go at 6 p.m. And then the induction ceremony that following night, Saturday the 28th, at the former Desmond in Albany. That being said, JJ, any final parting words of wisdom for our audience?
If you poach a venue from me, you're dead to me. That's about all I got to say.
I thought that went unsaid, but okay, good. Okay. I mean, I thought that just went unsaid for the business in general, but okay. That's good to know.
Apparently, it needs to be reiterated nowadays.
I'll remember that the next time I try to run a show, which I never have, so I probably never will. That all said, that man's JJ Alexander. I'm Brian Cady. I'm fat. I'm hot in an 80-degree apartment, and I need to get off. So, that all said.
Central air, baby.
Good for you. All right. So that all being said, we'll catch you next week on another new episode of White Heat, a wrestling podcast right here with Godzilla Media.